Hello, welcome to the course PH6B13E Computational Physics. The contents of today's lecture is taken from Core Python Programming by Wesley J. Chung. We'll continue to discuss topics from Module 1, Introduction to Python Programming. In the last class, we have discussed about some of the salient features of Python. So if you recollect, we discussed 9 points. First one, Python is a high-level language. It contains the functional aspects of C and the object-oriented programming nature of Java. Second, it is an object-oriented programming language. So here data is given prominence over logic. So you classify data based on its attributes. You make classes, subclasses, etc. and orient your entire programming structure around the data. Third, Python is scalable. You can grow your code size into any dimension of your choice. Fourth one, it is extensible. Even if the code volume is very large, you can still organize it neatly in terms of modules, and you can access contents of one module from another module. Fifth one, Python is portable. It is independent of the computer's hardware architecture and it can work on any operating system. Sixth one, Python is easy to learn because the syntax is fairly simple and the structure is also very simple compared to other conventional programming languages. Seventh one, easy to read. The unnecessary symbols found in other programming languages are missing here. Also, to denote code blocks, Python uses a white space which improves its readability. 8.1, it is easy to maintain. Python doesn't become obsolete very easily. And the 9th one, Python is a robust programming language because of its ability to pinpoint errors. So when Python compiles the program, it does a stack trace which lists out all the errors. So stack trace tell you where exactly, in which line exactly the error has occurred and also what is the type of the error. So this reduces the debugging time considerably. So we will continue to discuss some more salient features of Python. 10th one, Python is effective as a rapid prototyping tool. Firstly, what is a prototype in programming? Suppose you have a software idea. Instead of testing it with a large, complex, foolproof program, you build a quick programming model just to test the applicability of your idea. So such an early model is known as prototype. Typically, prototypes are used to demonstrate proof of concept. So you want to build a prototype very fast because this is not the final production code. So you don't have to make it a fully proof program. So you build it usually very quickly using shortcuts that are not typically used in the production codes. Now the real advantage of Python as a prototyping tool is that Python contains large number of external libraries with a whole lot of readily made functions which are developed for a variety of applications. So for any application, there is an inbuilt function available. You don't have to code from scratch. You can directly use the inbuilt function and get your work done. So if you have some networking requirements or internet application, imaging related problems, HTML, audiovisual application, numeral computation, for any requirement, there is an inbuilt function you can directly use. So using this inbuilt function, you can make prototype much more quickly compared to other traditional programming languages. Also, Python has many different interfaces to other systems. This is especially important in research lab. Suppose there is a research lab which is doing some high-end research. There are some complicated experimental systems. Usually in such labs, the experiments are not done manually because manual experimentation in such cases will take more time, and also the chances of error is more. So in such cases, you try to automate your experimental system using a computer. Here you write a program in your computer. Using that program, computer controls the experimental system. Python is commonly used for such lab automation. So here Python acts as an interface between the computer and the experimental system. So it can build prototypes quickly. Also, it can act as an interface between many other systems. The 11th point, Python is an efficient memory manager. So those of you who are familiar with C or C++ programming, you know that memory management is the responsibility of the code developer. So suppose if you are defining an array, you need to pre-allocate the memory, right? If you are dealing with a large number of arrays, especially arrays inside loops and all, this memory management is going to be a heavy burden on the developer. On the other hand, in the case of Python, memory management is done by the Python platform itself. This results in fewer bugs, shorter development time, and more robust application. The 12th point, Python is an interpreted language. Now, what is an interpreted language? Interpreted language is a programming language where majority of the instructions get executed directly without previously compiling the program into machine language. The interpreter translates each statement into a sequence of one or more subroutines that are already compiled into machine language. So Python being an interpreted language, it doesn't have to translate each of the lines in a program because there are readily available machine language codes available. Because some of the programming components are very common, right? Most of the time your program starts with an input statement and there is already a machine language code available for the input statement. So Python just uses that. Similarly, most of the time your program ends with a print statement. You print the result on the screen. And there is already a readily available machine language code corresponding to this print statement. So Python directly uses it. This is similar to the usage of inbuilt function, right? In Python, you don't have to program every function. There are inbuilt functions available. You can use them directly. That reduces your coding time. Same way, being an interpreted language helps Python to reduce its compilation time drastically compared to other traditional languages. And last one, probably as users, this is the most significant point for us. Python is an open source software. Open source means this is free to download and use. Right? Anybody can just log on to www.python.org and download the latest version of Python software. You don't have to pay any money. And also, if you are a computer geek, you can access the source code of Python. So if you're not satisfied with the functionalities of Python, you can add new features, you can add new type of data. Or if you feel that for a particular application, an inbuilt function is not available, you can develop an inbuilt function and add it to the Python library. So when Python was originally developed in 1991, the number of libraries were very limited. And people from all over the globe contributed to the library, and over the time it has grown exponentially, right? At the end of the day, knowledge grows only when it is shared. So we are really fortunate to have such an excellent programming platform absolutely free of cost, right? So let's make the best use of this opportunity. So that's about the salient features of Python. Let's now see what are the different ways in which Python is used. There are two ways in which you can use Python. One is known as interactive mode and second one is known as file mode. In interactive mode, you open either the command line window or the idle window, and the interpreter will be active with a prompt with this kind of symbol as shown in this figure. and your cursor will be blinking next to this symbol. So when the cursor blinks, it indicates that Python is waiting for you to type something. So you type a sentence and hit enter. If there is an answer, the window will display the answer. Otherwise, the prompt will appear again and you type the next sentence and the interaction is continuing. So I will take you now to the command line and idle windows and illustrate the working of the interactive mode. Okay. So this is the idle window. This is the white screen. So you can see the cursor is blinking here. It is waiting for you to type something. So you can type some simple statement like x equal to 10. So I have defined a variable x and assigned a value 10 to it. So the moment I hit enter, it will go to the next line and the cursor is blinking. It is waiting for me to enter the next line. I put y equal to 5. Hit enter, it goes to the third line. So when I say y equal to 5, there is no result to show, right? So you just go to the next line and wait for your next instruction. Now I just say I want to find, or I want the computer to print the sum of x and y. So I say print x plus y. So this is a computation, right? I am asking Python to show me the result of x plus y. So when I hit enter, Python has to show the answer. So I hit enter, it shows the answer 15, then it goes to the next line and waits for my command. So each line is executed like one line at a time, or line by line the executions are done. So in other words, in the case of interactive mode, it is the interpreter which converts the high-level language into machine language. You can also use this idle window to make some simple computation like 3 into 2. 3 into 2, I type, hit enter, I get the answer, or 100 divided by 10. Hit enter, I get the answer. So you can use it just like a computer, or just like a calculator, sorry. That's why interactive mode is also known as calculator mode. You can do the same thing in another window known as the command line window, which is the black screen. So same thing you can do. You can type x equal to 10, hit enter, the cursor is blinking, put y equal to 5, enter, print x plus y, then you get the answer. Okay. So this is the interactive mode, which is also known as calculator mode. Since this is a line by line execution, understandably you cannot write any complicated or lengthy programs in the interactive mode. So if you want to write a very long or a very complex program involving a large number of iterations or conditionals, functions, etc., then you will have to resort to what is known as the file mode. Now, how do you operate the file mode? You go to the top left corner, click on the file, then you press the new file. Just like how you use the Microsoft Word. Okay, so when you click new file, the new text editor will be open. This is similar to your Notepad or Microsoft Word. Here you can type your entire program. On the other hand, in the case of idle window, when you type the first sentence, hit enter, it will be executed. On the other hand, in your text editor, you can write your entire program at once. Then at the end of the program, the entire program will be compiled at once. So here the compiler is doing the translation. On the other hand, in the case of interactive mode, it is the interpreter which is doing the translation. Okay. So let's write the same program here, x equal to 10. Then y equal to 5, then I want to print the sum of x and y, print x plus y, right? In file mode, once you complete your program, you need to save it. Okay, so I go to file once again, save as. I'm going to save it on the desktop and give some name, okay, test program. Since this is a Python file, the extension has to be .py. Just like a PDF file, you have the extension .pdf, or Word file, you have the extension .doc or .docx. Here you have the extension .py. So I save it as test.py, save it. Now I can close it. So if I go to my desktop, the test.py file will be available there. Now, how am I going to run this file? So once again, you come to idle window. Always, this is the starting point. Okay. So come to idle window, click on file. Now you have open. Right? You want to open a Python file. So you go to desktop. The test.py file is available. You open it, and the file is ready. Now you want to execute it, right? So how you do that? You go to run and click run module. First time the program will be compiled, and then it will be run. The next time onwards it will be only in the run mode. Okay, so you run the module. So you get the answer here. You wanted the Python to show print x plus y, so the result is shown here. So this is the file mode. So usually when you work with large programs, you write it in a file, save it in your computer. You can save it for any duration, and whenever you want to run it, you just open the text editor and run it. You can run it for any number of times. That's why we say Python is easy to maintain. Now, when you save a Python program, you need to keep certain things in mind while giving the program name. As I said, the program name always should have an extension .py. Like I gave the name test.py. Only then Python understands that this is a Python file. Second one, in program name, alphanumeric characters are allowed. You can give English characters as well as numbers. Special characters are also allowed, but white space is not allowed. You cannot give a name like first space program.py. This is not allowed. So you will have to type these two words together. And underscore is allowed. So especially if you want to have multiple words in the program name, you can club those two using the underscore. Now in my program, I had two variables, x and y, right? So I had two variables, I gave the name x and y. Now when you assign a variable name, you also have to keep certain things in mind. First thing, any alphanumeric characters are allowed. That's why I'm able to put x or y as the variable name. Or you can use a combination of alphanumeric characters like xy or x7y. This is perfectly okay. But special characters are not allowed. I cannot put x and y equal to 100. This is not allowed. Then the variable name should always start with an alphabet. It cannot start with a number. So if you type 7xy equal to 100, Python is going to throw an error during compilation. Next, just like the program name, in the case of variable name also, white space is not allowed. So if you write x space y equal to 100, this is going to generate an error. Underscore is allowed as before. And another very important thing, most of the time students make mistake here, variables are case sensitive. So if I write a variable name as mark with m being small, and if I also write the same variable name with capital M, for Python these two are completely different variables. So sometimes you write in the first line mark with the small m, and by mistake in the next line you write mark with capital M. Then while compilation, Python will throw an error like this capital M mark is undefined or its value is not assigned, etc. So always be very careful when you are typing the variable name. Another important thing, keywords cannot be used as variable names. So in Python there are many keywords like print, input. In the case of loops, for loop, like while loop. And in the case of conditional, you have keywords like if, else, etc. So you cannot use these as variable names. For example, you cannot say print equal to 10. It has no meaning. It will throw you an error during compilation. So these are the things you have to keep in mind while assigning variable name. Now there is an assignment for you. I said in the case of Python, variables are case sensitive. What about your email ID? Is your email ID case sensitive? You can check it for yourself. Just go to your Gmail or Yahoo, whatever. You have an email ID, right? Usually you type it in small letters. Just type it in capital letters and see whether you are able to log into your email account. Okay, so do this as an assignment. Let's now get familiarized with the various functionalities in Python. Most of the time you start your program with inputting some data into a program, right? Usually you input data from your keyboard, and the instruction which is used for inputting is known as an input statement. So suppose you want to define a variable known as mark, and you want to assign it a value using your keyboard. So you simply write mark equal to input a pair of brackets. So here what happens, the cursor will blink and it prompts the user to enter a value. I can illustrate this with the Python idle window. So go here, you just say mark equal to input. When you enter, it is the cursor is blinking. It is basically waiting for you to enter a value to it. So it just say mark equal to 5. You just enter. Now mark is assigned the value 5. Right? For example, if you want to see the value, you can just say print mark. It will show the value 5. But I simply put mark equal to input when the cursor blink. Maybe sometimes the user doesn't understand what he has to do. So you can make it easier for the user. You can give him a clue that he needs to enter the mark, right? That's how you make the program more user friendly, right? So how do I do that? I just write mark equal to input. Inside input, I can put an instruction. Enter the mark. Now when I hit enter, you can see Python is asking the user to enter the mark. So now the instruction is more clear to the user, right? So this is a more user-friendly program. So you can enter the mark 5 now. But you can see there is no gap between the statement enter the mark and 5, right? So usually inside input statement, whatever you type is a text instruction. That's why I typed it inside the quotation mark. Now if you want to give a gap here, you can simply write the same thing here and leave a gap at the end of mark, right? So when you do enter the mark, there is a gap, then you can enter, right? So this is how you make the program more and more user friendly. Always remember one thing, when you are developing a program, you are the developer. But the program will be used by a completely different individual, that is the user. The developer and user both are different. So a developer always has to keep the point of view of the user in mind. The user is not bothered about the computational complexities of your program. The user is bothered about only two aspects. One, how effective is the program? Second, how user-friendly is the program? So you need to make your program as smart as possible. That's how you make it more and more effective. And you have to make it as simple as possible. That's how you make it more and more user-friendly. Coming back to the input statement, suppose you want to input two variables, x and y. So in first sentence you say x equal to input, enter the x value. In second sentence you say y equal to input, enter the y value. Okay. So here twice you have to do the instruction, right? Now you can make your code smarter. When I say smarter, what I mean is you can arrive at the same result with less number of codes or less number of lines. That's a smarter program. So what you have achieved in 2 lines, you can achieve in one single line using a new function known as split function. So here you say x comma y equal to input inside the bracket, inside the quotation mark, enter the x and y values. Then you say dot split bracket. So here once you enter this, you will see the prompt, enter the x and y values. The cursor will be blinking under that. You enter the x value, put a space, then enter the y value. Let's see how does this work. Say x comma y equal to input, enter the x and y values inside quotation mark, then close the bracket, dot split bracket. So you can leave a space here so that it will be easy for the user to read. Now you hit enter. So you see enter the x and y values, cursor is blinking, you put the first value 5, then you put a space, then enter the second value 10. Now you can check it for yourself. Print x value is there, print y value is there. So in one single sentence you are able to input 2 variables. So if you have a large number of variables, this split function is going to be very, very useful. Now instead of entering values with a space, if you want to enter values with a comma, so you can do that. Use the same split statement. So inside the split you put a comma. So whenever you put something inside the input statement, you need to put it inside a quotation mark. So comma is placed inside the quotation mark. Now you click enter the x and y values. You can enter 5 comma 10. Okay. Now if I write a program x equal to input enter the x value, you give some value 5, then y equal to input enter the y value, you give the value 10, and you want to find the sum of these 2 values. So you say print x plus y. Now here see one difference. Whenever you write a text, you will be inside the quotation mark. On the other hand, if you are writing a variable, like print x plus y, x and y are variable, you do not use a quotation mark here. So when I say print x plus y, ideally what I am expecting the result 10 plus 5, 15, but what Python throws is completely different. It throws me 5, 10. Now what happened here? One thing you have to remember is for the input statement, the default data type is string. So when you say x equal to input, enter some value, you throw the value 5, you are throwing 5 as a number, but Python is receiving 5 as a character. For Python, 5 is a character or a string. Similarly, for Python, this 10 is not a number. This is once again a character or a string. So when you add these 2 things together, in your mind, you are adding 2 numbers. But for Python is combining 2 strings. So it combines 5 and 10 and gives you 5, 10. Now, I need to tell Python that 5 is not a string, it is a number. So how do I do that? What are the different data types available for numbers? Either you can represent it as an integer number, integers are whole numbers, or you can have numbers with decimal places. So you can call it as a float number. In Python, another data type called double is also available. Double has higher precision compared to float. Okay, for now let's talk about only integer and float. So I have input x value is a string. I have input y value is a string. Now I want to convert these 2 into integers. I simply say x equal to index. So the string file gets converted into integer file. Similarly, I say y equal to int y. So the string 10 gets converted into integer 10. Now when I say print x plus y, integer 5 plus integer 10 will be integer 50. You get the correct answer. Same way you can convert this into float. When you print, you get 15.0. Remember, float has a decimal point. So even if there is no decimal place, by default 0 will be there at the first decimal place. So this is known as typecasting. You're changing the type of your variable. So originally it was the string type. You converted it into integer or float. Now question, how do we make our program smarter? Remember, what is a smart program? With less number of lines, you should be able to achieve the same result. Okay. So here, how many lines are there? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. In 5 lines, I got this result. Now, how do I change that? Instead of inputting first and then changing the type of the variable, can I specify the time while inputting itself? Of course you can do. Now how do you do that? I want to tell Python while inputting x, you need to input it as an integer. So simply in front of input statement, you put an int here. So int bracket, then you write your entire input statement and close the bracket. Now when you enter 5, 5 is entered as an integer. Same way, y equal to int bracket input bracket enter the y value, then close both the brackets. When you enter the value 10, y is input as an integer. Now when you say print x plus y, you get the sum of two integers 50. Same way, you can input as float numbers. So this is a smarter way of doing your program. So whenever you input any data variable, it's good that you specify the type during the inputting time rather than leaving it for the later time. So instead of doing a typecasting like this, you can do a typecast in this way. Okay. The same thing, when you want to input multiple variables, you can use typecasting during the input statement itself. Here syntax is slightly different. So when you want to input x and y as integers, you say x comma y equal to square bracket int x for x. In input, enter the x and y values bracket dot split. Sorry, you have to close the square bracket here. I have forgot to put that. So you close the square bracket. Okay, so this is a syntax error. Okay, welcome to errors. Okay, here the x has no meaning. It just means that a list is created. In that list, all the values are integers. This is a dummy variable. You can put any name here. You can simply say int m for m. It doesn't make any difference. So it only means that you have a list of two variables and both the variables are going to be integers. Okay. Now in previous versions of Python, an older function was available known as row input, but in the newer versions this is no more available. So let's not discuss about row input. Now if you input a data type and you want to know what is the type of the data, the keyword for this is known as type. So if you say x equal to 10 and if you type x, then it will show the result class int. So it indicates that your x is an integer. I will illustrate this with the idle window now. Say x equal to 10. Then you say type x. X is a variable, so you don't need any quotation mark there. So it show class int. It is an integer. Same way you put x equal to 10.4. This is a float, right? And you say type x class float. And I told you the default data type of input is string. Let's check that. Let me say x equal to input enter the x value. Let's put a space here. It's always a good practice to leave a space at the end. Enter the x value. I put 10 now. I can type x. It's a string. On the other hand, if you typecast it like x equal to int, now you put the same thing here. Let's do some shortcuts. Okay. Now x is input as an integer, so I put the same value 10. Now when I say type x, you can see it is integer, right? Now suppose you want to give a title to your program. So you have written a program to add two numbers, right? And you want to tell the user this is a program to find sum of two numbers, right? So you are giving a description so that the user understands what is going to happen inside the program, right? So you can do this by putting a hashtag. The moment you put a hashtag at the beginning, it becomes a command line. The command line will not be executed during the compilation because this is a description. So you can put a description using command line and write your code. Actually, this is a very good practice to put descriptions or command line before every code block, so that the user will understand what happens inside the code. Even if you're working in a software firm, etc., usually the large programs will be coded by a number of developers together. So each developer will code a certain part of the program. So if the program section which you have developed if it is not understood by the other group members, then it's going to be a problem, right? So it is always good whenever you program something, you put as many command lines as possible so that people who are reading it, other people who are reading it, they can understand it better. So that's how you improve the readability of your program. So always remember, try to write a program which is as user-friendly as possible, as understandable as possible, and it should be as smart as possible. That should be our motto. And during the course of this semester, let's try to hone our programming skills. That's for today. Thank you.